Lane Bryant shooting. It was the morning of February 2nd, 2008. Inside a Lane Bryant clothing store in Tinley Park, Illinois, 6 women were opening for the day. They were arranging racks, counting cash, and chatting before customers arrived. At 10:30 a.m., a man walked in. He looked like an ordinary customer. Then he pulled out a gun. He ordered the women to the back of the store, tied their hands with duct tape, and demanded money. At 10:45 a.m., one of the women, believed to be the manager, Rhoda McFarland, managed to dial 911. The dispatcher answered, but before Rhoda could explain what was happening, the call went silent. Then, in a faint whisper, she said 2 words, Lane Bryant. It was the only clue police had. The line stayed open, recording muffled sounds, quiet movement, indistinct voices. And then, nothing. Moments later, gunshots. When police arrived just minutes after the call, they found a scene of horror. 6 women were bound in the back room. 5 were dead. 1 was still alive, the lone survivor. The survivor, though wounded, managed to describe the gunman, an African-American man about 6 feet tall, wearing dark clothing and a knit cap. Police released a composite sketch within days. Hundreds of tips poured in, but none led to him. Investigators believed it began as a robbery, but turned into an execution. There were no security cameras in the store. The gunman left no fingerprints, no DNA, then disappeared into the suburbs. The FBI joined the case, analyzing phone data, re-interviewing witnesses, and reconstructing the 911 call, but still no arrest. 16 years later, the case remains open. And the killer still hasn't been found. JonBenét Ramsey. It was the morning of December 26, 1996, in Boulder, Colorado. The Ramsey family's home stood quiet until a scream shattered the silence. 6-year-old JonBenét Ramsey, a child beauty queen, was missing. Her mother, Patsy Ramsey, had discovered a handwritten ransom note on the staircase demanding $118,000 for her daughter's safe return. The note was strange, unusually long, and written on paper taken from inside the house. Police arrived minutes later. They began searching but found no signs of forced entry. For hours, investigators combed through the home, waiting for the kidnapper's instructions, but no one ever called, and no one came to collect the ransom. Then, hours later, John Ramsey, JonBenét's father, made a chilling discovery. In the basement, behind a locked door, he found her body. A cord around her neck, duct tape over her mouth, her small frame wrapped in a white blanket. The autopsy revealed she'd been struck on the head and strangled. The ransom note, the crime scene, the timeline, none of it made sense. As days passed, suspicion turned inward. Detectives questioned the Ramseys for inconsistencies. The media swarmed their home, painting them as suspects before the evidence was even clear. But there was no proof, no fingerprints, no intruder, no confession. Over the years, theories mounted. An intruder through the basement window, a kidnapping gone wrong, or a family cover-up. DNA evidence later cleared the Ramseys, but no one was ever charged. Missy Bever. It was the early morning of April 18, 2016 in Midlothian, Texas. Outside, a storm rolled through the quiet suburbs. Inside the Creekside Church of Christ, 45-year-old Missy Bevers arrived just after 4 a.m. to set up for her morning fitness class. Security cameras capture her walking in, hauling gear, getting ready for Camp Gladiator, her boot camp program. But what Missy didn't know was that someone was already inside. At 3:30 a.m., nearly 30 minutes before Missy arrived, an unknown person entered the church. Dressed head to toe in SWAT-style tactical gear, the intruder moved calmly through the halls, carrying a hammer and prying open doors. Their movements were slow, deliberate, almost rehearsed. Then Missy walked in. She had no idea someone was waiting. Less than 10 minutes later, she was found beaten to death. Her body discovered by her first arriving students around 5 a.m. Police pulled surveillance footage, but the killer's identity was impossible to confirm. The armor hid everything: face, hair, even height. His walking style looked off, almost limping, leading investigators to wonder if it was real or a disguise. Detectives searched through Missy's phone and social media, They found unusual messages from an unknown man, flirtatious and unsettling, but nothing that tied anyone to the murder. Her husband, her in-laws, her co-workers, all questioned, all cleared. The weapon was never found. The suspect was never identified. To this day, the murder of Missy Beavers remains unsolved. Setagaya family murder. It was the night of December 30th, 2000 in Setagaya, Tokyo. Inside a quiet two-story home beside a park, the Miyazawa family, Mikio, Yasuko, and their 2 children were getting ready for bed. Sometime before midnight, an intruder climbed through an upstairs bathroom window. He strangled the 6-year-old son first, then turned on the rest of the family. Mikio was stabbed, fighting to protect his wife and daughter. Within minutes, all 4 were dead. But the horror didn't end there. The killer didn't flee. He stayed. For hours, he lingered inside the home. He used their computer, drank their tea, and ate ice cream from their freezer. He changed clothes, left his own belongings scattered around, and slept on their couch as the bodies lay only feet away. When police arrived, the scene was almost surreal. The killer had left behind his knife, gloves, and multiple items of clothing, including a rare shirt, one of only 130 ever made. He'd also left footprints, blood, and even his feces in the toilet, unflushed. From the DNA, investigators learned that the killer was male, likely between 15 and 24 years old, with a haplogroup common with Koreans, Chinese, and Japanese. Inside his bag, they found something even stranger. Sand traced back to Edwards Air Force Base in California. Every clue imaginable, every trace left behind, and still no suspect. The case became one of Japan's largest investigations, with over 250,000 officers involved. Yet 25 years later, it remains unsolved. Barry and Honey Sherman. Barry and Honey Sherman were one of Canada's wealthiest couples, admired, influential, and well-known across Toronto's elite circles. Barry, the brilliant but controversial founder of Apotex, built a pharmaceutical empire from nothing. Honey was warm, outspoken, and deeply involved in charity, the public face of the family. On December 13, 2017, the Shermans were preparing for a winter trip to Florida. Nothing seemed unusual. A normal evening inside their quiet mansion on Old Colony Road. 2 days later, their realtor arrived to show the house. In the basement, beside the pool, she made a chilling discovery. Barry and Honey were found dead, seated upright, side by side, belts looped around their necks, tied to a metal railing. At first, police called it a murder-suicide, but the family pushed back immediately, calling the theory impossible. Within weeks, investigators agreed. This wasn't self-inflicted. It was a double homicide. The crime scene told a calculated story. No signs of forced entry, no triggered alarms, no valuables missing. Whoever did it knew the couple and knew the house. Autopsies revealed both had been strangled after being bound with men's leather straps. The staging was deliberate, clean, precise, and symbolic, pointing toward a professional hit. But speculation ran wild. Some believed the motive lay closer to home, that relatives or even their children may have wanted their inheritance early. Others thought it was corporate revenge from rivals Barry had crossed over the years. Yet despite endless theories, none of it led anywhere. As months turned to years, the investigation only deepened the mystery. Security footage captured a shadowy figure walking near their home around the time of the murders, but the person was never identified. 7 years later, the case remains unsolved. Oakey Kite. It was May 2004 in Aurora, Colorado. 53-year-old Oakey Kite was known as dependable, kind, the kind of man who'd lend a hand to anyone. He worked as a financial analyst and lived a quiet life. But that spring, he decided to rent out his spare room. He placed an ad. A man responded. Well-dressed, polite, said he was moving from out of state. He paid in cash, 1 month up front. No red flags. A few days later, Al's coworkers noticed he hadn't shown up for work. Calls went unanswered. Concerned, police were sent to check his home. When they walked inside, they found a scene straight out of a nightmare. Al Kite was bound with duct tape, hands and feet tied to the bedpost. Head was covered. He had been tortured and stabbed repeatedly before being left to die. The killer had even showered, eaten food, and slept in the house before leaving. But it got stranger. Al's car, wallet, and phone were gone. His ATM card was used at multiple banks by a man wearing gloves and a hood, carefully avoiding the cameras. Detectives pieced together the suspect's identity through the rental process. He'd used a fake name, Robert Cooper, a stolen social security number, and a prepaid phone. Every lead hit a dead end. The FBI called the suspect meticulous, intelligent, and patient, possibly a career con man or a contract killer. He vanished without a trace, leaving behind almost no evidence. To this day, no one knows who Robert Cooper really was or why he targeted Oakey Kite.